Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this joint webinar presented by Verint Systems and our good partner, Luware. Before we get started, just some brief housekeeping. So we will be doing Q&A. We're going to save that until the end of the session. If you want to raise a question at any time, just use the Q&A portal and type in your question there. We do have a couple of the guys who are monitoring that stream of questions. And as I say, at the end of the session, we'll get to replay back some of those questions with the panel. So I think everyone's aware, really, I think, of the unprecedented growth in online unified collaboration platforms, and obviously part of that is accelerated by the unfortunate COVID situation that we're in. And within that space, Microsoft Teams is really seeing amazing growth. I think some of the stats that I've seen recently are that it's predicted by the end of the year, end of this year, 2020, 41% of organizations will be using Teams in some shape or form. And I think the numbers keep changing and growing all the time, but the last numbers I saw were that there were at least 75 million daily active users on Teams. So, that's a huge number. And obviously, there's a lot of interest in the compliance side of Teams because a large percentage of those users will require some form of compliance capture. And that's really the reason that we're presenting this webinar to you today. So the subject matter is really how do you reconcile productivity of users with the need to ensure that they are compliant. So that's what the team are going to be presenting today. So my name is Mike Wright-Smith. I look after the strategic partnerships within the EMEA region. I'm joined today by some esteemed colleagues from Verint and also Luware who are going to be doing the presenting. So Phil Fry is our VP Go-to-Market at Verint for Compliance Solutions. We also have Alex, Executive Director at Luware, who's going to be presenting information around how Luware supports the Verint offering. And also we're joined by Jerry Durning, who's Director of Product Management at Verint. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Phil Fry.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks everyone for attending. So really what I want to do is start talking about Teams and why Teams, and obviously, and I think the benefit of Teams, of course, is widely understood. It's a real seamless, real-time collaboration solution that no matter the channel or device, it comes together with smooth integration, of course, with the O365 app suite. It is a unified communications and collaborations tool, and it's changed the way we work. Absolutely. We communicate and we exchange information. Platforms such as Microsoft Teams are now, and Microsoft Teams, of course, is the fastest growing app in the Microsoft history with over 75 million daily active users. And as Mike said, that is going to just continue to grow. The COVID crisis has really shown us that people are looking for new ways, new innovative ways to communicate. So it was born with a vision to really drive seamless collaboration. It was there to boost employee productivity, and it was also there to allow teams to interact in a real time across the channels of their choice. And if you're considering Teams to exploit these capabilities and maximize your competitive advantage, you do have to consider how you're going to deal with uninterrupted communications and maintain your business continuity. Wherever your workforce is located, you must still remain compliant with regulations and any corporate policies that may demand you to record and store and monitor the regulated users and interactions. So really high level, and this is more to do with the financial industry, but I think every industry has to be cognizant of this. We call it the compliance imperative. There are regulatory fines and penalties being inflicted, particularly in the financial industry where we've seen 381 billion worth of fines imposed on banks since the financial crisis. With the crisis and the challenges, not only can you get fined, but because of this, the regulators can actually create cessation of operations and prosecution to individuals. So compliance recording is absolutely critical. If you're not careful, you can lose, of course, market share, and even more so in this real environment, the loss well, the actual creation of reputational damage, which in the current environment is absolutely essential to avoid. So Microsoft Teams, 3 challenges we're going to be looking at of the compliance adoption. So that's what we're going to discuss today. The real move towards a more collaborative and unified communications world, which kicked off about 10 years ago and experienced somewhat steady, if unspectacular growth. However, as I mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated this move out of all expectations. And Microsoft and Teams platform is no doubt at the vanguard of this transition. The ability to collaborate and communicate in a virtual environment is particularly relevant now that so many of us are having to work from home or mobile. This increased capability is a challenge to any business that is subject to a form of external regulation, where traditional recording solutions have a compliance gap that needs to be closed before you can exploit all the communication modes on offer. So the 3 challenges really that we see, of course, working from anywhere, the new ways of collaborating, and the realization that recording is really just the beginning of that compliance story. So first of all, I want to talk about working from anywhere. You know, globally dispersed teams create new complexity. They are often not able to use traditional UC, soft clients, and mobile solutions due to how recording is performed. Now, because Microsoft Teams is increasingly used as the core collaboration tool for business switching to remote operations, it has, again, become necessary for recording systems to capture Teams interactions conducted via their mobile phones, the desktop clients, and phone devices used by globally dispersed workforce. You've got to look at innovative compliance capture solutions that can record Teams interactions by these remote traders, middle and back office staff, and contact center agents with the same levels of reliability and in a way that continues to address compliance requirements. Physical devices, such as the traditional desk phones and even trading turrets, are often not able to be practically used remotely. Many use the temporary relaxation of the recording rules to get around the problem, but that is not a long-term solution. Businesses operating under very strict jurisdictions can only exploit the benefits of digital collaboration if they continue to comply with relevant regulations rules, no matter where their workforce is located, either on-site or remotely. Compliance, risk, IT, and operations teams are pressed to make sure that interactions by the regulated users are automatically captured, processed, stored, and made readily available while striking a balance between data protection and the other regulatory obligations. Recording, of course, in such environments must be implemented to ensure that you capture any user or user group across the back office operations, across the trading floor, the contact centers, and even the branch offices. Secondly, new ways of collaboration. We know that the increased usage of alternative communications channels such as video, screen sharing, chat, and their compliance implications make it more complicated. If you want to exploit all the communications mode offered by Teams, the recording solutions will need to capture all the forms of the interactions, from the voice calls to the video conferencing to the screen sharing. And it will be necessary to cover all peer-to-peer, group, or channel-based integrations. And there is an accelerated shift towards cloud-based approach to maintain these lines of communications. And also, as I said, traditional compliance technologies struggle to record all these new modes. Finally, the last point I want to talk about is recording, as we say, is just the beginning. You know, closing this compliance gap requires a recording system that not only stores your data about all the regulated interactions, but also provides the ability to retrieve that data, replay that data, and analyze it, whether it's for regulatory compliance, conduct risk management, surveillance, or other evidential purposes. And by using the same single unified solution, you can incorporate Teams interactions into your current compliance ecosystems alongside other communications such as other UC and collaboration tools, the mobiles that I've mentioned, the trading turrets, and legacy PBX solutions. And this, of course, facilitates a more integrated approach to managing the data, simplifying the data management, which is absolutely critical, with a single searchable repository of all the recorded media and metadata, which in turn can reduce the time and resources that you need to locate and retrieve the relevant data and the analysis of the conversations across all the channels in use. I'm now going to hand over to Alex to talk to you more about asking yourself the right questions. Alex.
Thank you, Phil. So, yeah, your business needs to record Microsoft Teams calling and meetings to help you drive your digital transformation in a compliant way. And obviously, as Phil mentioned before, in these challenging times at the moment, these things to go fast. Right? There are essential capabilities to look for and key questions to ask when you go about to evaluate such solutions for a highly regulated environment. Let's look at some of those questions. So, what do the applicable regulations and policies require? If your workforce is regulated in any way, you may need to record more than just voice calls. Video conferencing, instant messaging, and other types of interactions may also be required for regulatory compliance. How can automated and unified compliance technology help you capture all Teams communication and collaboration? Does the solution work with all the communication modes available in Microsoft Teams calling and meetings? Not just voice, but also chat, video, screen sharing, and other forms of collaboration. Microsoft Teams offers a plethora of functionality, right, which obviously poses its own challenge for adhering to regulations. Secondly, how do I capture all of Teams types of interactions? If you want to exploit all of the communication modes offered by Teams, your recording solution will need to capture them all, whether on the desktop, on the web, mobile clients, conference room endpoints, IP phones, and so on and so forth. Right? So that's one of the Teams approaches is mobile first, right? So your workforce is becoming more and more mobile. People are working from home a lot, and so on and so forth. So obviously these bring their own challenges with it. How can you simplify the deployment and maintenance as well as the scaling of your recording infrastructure? Right? So you might be posed with new challenges there which don't fit into a traditional way of deploying software and going about your software management lifecycle. What delivery models are available and how does the platform support administration and user provisioning? Those are all questions we need to ask ourselves. And yeah, the third topic we're looking into is like security and reliability. Recording will need to be automatic. Just as it maybe now for your telephone communications. This is important, means that you will need to look beyond the user-controlled built-in recording features in Microsoft Teams, which, yes, are known as convenience recording, but we need other tools to make us really fully compliant. What specific security and resilience features should you look for to remain compliant? How can you address strict data sovereignty requirements while you maintain data integrity? And how you can you best manage, analyze, and get value out of your recorded data in addition to making Teams recording part of your overall compliance and regulatory technology estate? So I think there is quite a couple of questions which everyone being in this situation needs to ask themselves. Thank you. So I'll be handing over to Jerry.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so we've looked at the kind of the wider considerations. Let's now start looking into compliance recording in a little bit more detail. So let's start breaking down the questions that you're probably working through. So I imagine if you're attending this webinar, you're either embarking on or considering a Teams rollout. And what I'd like to share with is some of the questions that Alex and I and the Luware team, the Verint team have been asked over the past 12 months. We've been working with customers in similar situations who are about to embark on or are embarking on a Teams rollout and considering some of those higher level questions on compliance recording. Alex mentioned a lot of considerations there. Breaking them down, there's other ones that we've also seen in terms of deploying Teams across the organization. So extra things that we've experienced in helping customers with are, there's a chance you already have an existing UC platform, so things like migrations. You know, if you've already got Skype or some other UC tool, how do you migrate from that successfully and move move the recordings and move safely and successfully over to a Teams environment and record there. And as Alex had mentioned, there's lots of infrastructure and security questions, and that's where the Luware team provide a lot of great assistance and help, and also a solution to try and to answer those questions around infrastructure, security, Azure, on-prem, hybrid, and making the most of your existing assets. So there's lots of questions there, kind of high level. Alex has touched on a lot of them. What we're going to break down in a bit more detail is questions to consider when you're choosing your recording solution. And what we'll do is we'll first of all look at what do you get. You may be looking at what you get out of the box or natively within the Teams platform. I'd say there's a lot of information on the screen, so I'll let you read that at your leisure. I'll try and summarize into the three main themes that we see when it relates to Teams platform. What do you get natively versus what would you get with a recording solution like Verint? So the first main theme is the difference between convenience recording and compliance recording. So what I mean by convenience recording, this is essentially the red button, the record button that you would see within the Teams user experience behind the ellipsis for a user to decide when they want to record or remember to record a meeting or choose to record a meeting or a call. This really gives optionality, and what we find many of us work in regulated markets, that within regulated markets you really need to have always on recording, compliance recording, and there's lots of different reasons to record. Within regulated industries, you have to record to meet those regulations, but equally in other industries that maybe aren't regulated, there's other reasons to record, if it's disputes, complaints management, consumer protection, corporate liability, coaching. But essentially, if you need to do compliance recording, you need to look beyond what you get natively within the Teams platform. Another consideration, again, just with a high-level theme, is flexibility on where you store to. So again, many customers that we work with Luware have investments in existing archives and architectures, so they may want to leverage that. They might not be ready for a stream in Azure in the cloud. So if they want to go to on-premise archives, or indeed if they want to go to archive in other third-party cloud infrastructure, again, that's something that we would be able to help with, that you wouldn't have natively within the Teams platform. And finally, just picking up on what Alex had mentioned before about the stronger compliance requirements. So policy or user-based retention, managing the life cycle of data in line with the regulations, the jurisdictions, the security, the encryption, all of the different kind of policy and user-based retention requirements that you may have. The compliance workflows for things like legal hold, replay approval, a search and replay experience that's tuned to meet not only UC use cases, but also wider use cases, and can act as a single pane of glass over other recordings. So be that legacy UC, mobile, turrets, other UC platforms, a single pane of glass that can act across all of them. So there are things to consider. Microsoft does give good native capabilities for convenience recording, but it's convenience recording. It's not always on compliance recording for the regulated user. And speaking of what we can deliver for that always on compliance recording, the Verint solution provides omnichannel capture. So what does that mean within the Teams platform? It means that we can record all of the different UC modalities. So voice, video, desktop, screen share, and within the next month or so, we'll also be able to provide a recording of instant message capture as well. So that full range of employee and third-party communications, we can record everything within the one solution. What we're going to look at for a second is how that actually works. Let's look at the actual flow of Teams recording. So a couple of things just to get across in terms of the high levels. Within the Teams platform, Microsoft recently released compliance APIs. So those APIs are enabled as at May. And what they do is they enable us to integrate to the Teams platform and provide always-on compliance recording. So as part of that, there's the concept of a meeting. So that might be a diarized event in your calendar, let's join at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or it might be a one-to-one or one-to-many call or video call. So as an example, I call Alex, Alex calls me, or we conference in Phil. So anything that's a meeting or a one-to-one or one-to-many communication event, in the background, Teams instantiates a meeting. So within Teams, there's the concept of a regulated user. And as part of that regulated user, there's a new policy functionality to define. As an example, Jerry's regulated, Alex isn't. So let's assume Jerry's regulated. If Jerry joins a meeting, starts a meeting, someone calls Jerry, or Jerry does a video call with someone as an example, the policy check will fire in the background. And when the policy check fires, what happens? The Teams platform auto-invites the recording bot. I'll get back to that in a second. It also plays or displays an announcement depending on how you join. So if it's a PSTN phone in, you'll hear an announcement if you're joining via Teams client. So that's PC, laptop, mobile, Teams-enabled devices.
This meeting is no longer being recorded or transcribed.
That you have within the any Teams-enabled hardware. It will also record them. So the recording bot itself, the recording bot's job is to essentially record everything that the regulated user sees, hears, says, or shares, depending on which modalities are enabled. So if that's voice, video, screen share, it will record everything from the regulated user's viewpoint. And then within our solution, we will manage that data lifecycle, those data assets, and also provide compliance workflows and applications on top of that. What I'm going to do now is show you a quick video of that in action. So I'll let the video run, and also offer up, if you need a demo or if you need anything to follow up on it, myself or Alex or the wider team would be more than happy to do a live demo. But essentially what we're going to see within the video is the flow that I've just explained. So my colleague Jim is set up as a regulated user. The policy check fires in the background, and the recording bot will join. So you'll see here on Jim's mobile, he's about to connect, and we'll see the flow in action. As part of the demo, Jim's now sharing screen. So again, when it's covering recording all the different modalities, be it voice, video, desktop screen share, everything's recorded. It's available within our application to search for. In this instance, the call was split across 3 modalities. We can merge that into one logical call, or we can split it out into 3. You can also see in the video now all of the different metadata that's associated with the call. So in essence, we record everything that the regulated user sees, and also all the different pieces of metadata we get by connecting to the Teams platform. So essentially, that's all of the counterparties that form part of that call. Okay, as I said, a quick short demo. If anyone would like, we can follow up with a more detailed demo and do it live and spend a bit more time with you. Kind of looking broader to over and above just Teams recording, an overview of what we provide over and above just the base recording. So the compliance application you get as part of Verint Financial Compliance. We manage the data and the governance of the data, so that's the security aspects, interacting with the archive, the retention periods. Also for search and playback, we can search and playback lots of different search capabilities, all the usual things you'd expect from telephony platforms in terms of metadata, but also things like free text search. We can enable transcription, and solve use cases like find a call last month where Jerry and Phil said a specific word. So enabling the transcription to be part of that search experience and part of that analysis. Things like case management and labels to manage investigations. Very, very fine-grained access control to make sure that the right people have access from a data privacy point of view, and also within your compliance teams that you can give access to different jurisdictions or teams to not only listen to their own calls via replay approval, but also listen to the right calls within the org structure. Lots of compliance workflows in terms of, I'd mentioned briefly approval, legal hold, and finally data exports that were very open in terms of the architecture. There's lots of different ways to open APIs and also bulk export capabilities that we realize that the data is your data. So, you know, it might have further value within a surveillance tool or an e-discovery tool or somewhere else within your organization. So there's nice features there to manage data exports. So I'm going to hand you back to Alex to talk through some of the considerations on hosted services. So Alex, over to you.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, so if you look at the step 3 we're having here, so it's about choosing a service based on your business needs. Based on the nature of your business, compliance obligations, internal requirements and regulations, you might choose one of 2 service models, either to manage the solution yourself or consume it as a cloud-hosted solution managed by an experienced service provider. Fortunately, with Verint Financial Compliance for Teams, you have the choice. So you can either choose the self-managed model. Self-managed gives you the advantage of having full control of the system at any given time. This approach means that the solution will be deployed in your own Azure tenancy or in a hybrid model. If you've got certain components which still require on-prem connectivity, as Jerry mentioned before, if you want to use your legacy archives, or you have a hybrid recording model where you want to record other platforms as well. So that gives you this opportunity to do so. Managing the systems yourselves comes with the traditional pros and cons, such as, so you've got your self-controlled software deployment life cycles, you've got your engineering testing, and so on and so forth, but you've also got the necessity to have trained engineers and operations people to look after the platform. You've got your infrastructure costs, right, because you need to run this on your own servers, be it on-premise or in and partially in Microsoft Azure. You've got to care about the security and data protection management of the aspect of this as well. So if you compare that to the second option we've got there, is you have the possibility to consume Verint Financial Compliance as a fully managed software as a service offering managed by a service provider. From our point of view, this option aligns beautifully with Microsoft Teams itself, which is obviously a fully native cloud solution. So if you have an aligning strategy there, that would be the optimum approach for you. The approach gives you the advantage of rapid deployment. Solution can be live within a matter of days. It's very easy to deploy because the system is already there, right? You only need to integrate it into your environment, which is a pretty simple thing to do. Proof of concepts, for example, can be set up in no time to validate functionality and integration points, right? Other than having to go through your internal process of deploying servers and setting up things and that's like that. So with a managed service offering, the costs are clear and transparent because you've got a per user per month pricing, plus your storage consumption, which the data can be stored either in your own tenant or in the hosted tenant of the service provider. Yeah, due to the system being pre-configured and ready to go from the outset, transition and adoption times are being kept at a minimum, and even the most urgent compliance needs can be fulfilled. And I think that's the thing which a lot of people have been faced with in the last couple of months, urgent compliance needs. So you might have not even thought about getting Microsoft Teams recorded, and from one day to the other, you've got a population of people working from home and doing these kinds of things. You've got an urgent need to obviously follow your compliance requirements. Another aspect of it is the peace of mind which comes with a fully managed service. You don't have to think about patches, backups, system maintenance, operations. That's all taken care of by specialists who basically do nothing else on a daily basis. So you have that peace of mind. And last but not least, is a fully managed service offering. You're always up to date and don't need to think about upgrades, change windows, lengthy testing cycles, things like that. That's taken care of by the managed service provider, and you get the benefit of always being up to date and having the latest features available. All right, so I'll be handing back to them.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, just to kind of recap on some of the wider points in terms of the product's capabilities. We've covered a lot so far this morning. The three main points in terms of the product's capabilities. So from a Teams point of view, we can record everything. So just to recap, that's everything the user sees, hears, says, and exchanges across all modalities and across all Teams-enabled devices. So that's any device that's enabled, PC, laptop, mobile, any Teams-enabled device, and we can also capture via session border controllers as well. So all of the different range of Teams communication modes. The platform itself can also provide a single pane of glass to capture your other channels that need to be recorded, your other devices. So for turrets, IPC, BT, speaker bus, Cloud9, for mobiles, a range of devices and providers, and other UC tools like Cisco, Symphony, and Skype and other legacy Microsoft UC technology. So the same application can record all the different devices that you might be tackling at the moment. And last point, I'd mentioned it before, integration strategy. The platform is very open in terms of adding new integrations, importing data from systems that you might want to decommission, and also being a good citizen as part of your wider architecture. So our platform is very open. If the data needs to go somewhere else, e-coms, other or voice or other communication surveillance or e-discovery or data lakes, the application is very open in terms of moving copies of the data elsewhere for further analytics and surveillance. So that's just a brief recap on the wider capabilities. Back to Alex and Phil just to see us across the finish line.
Thanks very much, Jerry. So really just to sum up, the final point we really want to then reiterate with you is the partnership that Verint and Luware are bringing to you. And this is really important to us both. Verint are a software house, and I think software houses need to focus on that. Some companies sometimes sort of push themselves too thin, and by working with really specialist partners, we think this provides the clients with the strongest value. And so why Verint and Luware? So from a Verint point of view, we've been a Microsoft UC partner for many, many years, and we're one of the leaders in this space. We have over 80,000 recorded users to date. We've been a partner working with Microsoft for over 10 years, and we are a Microsoft Gold partner. We've been officially a co-sell partner, and we've been involved in the certification testing of Teams. So we've been there from the very start, and we have an award-winning UC recording solution. And of course, naturally, we have global teams to help sell, pre-sell, and add support. And with that, passing over to Luware, to Alex.
Thank you, Phil. So yes, our partnership with Verint has got quite a long history now. So we've been partnering up with Verint for over 6 years, and we've built a very strong relationship together with them. One of the main focus points is Luware has got a very strong Microsoft strategy because we've got our own software for Microsoft, call routing and contact center offerings to Microsoft, and the Verint solution beautifully rounds up our portfolio as well. And we, together with Verint, have deployed many customers within the financial compliance sector in the last couple of years on Skype for Business technology, and now also with Microsoft Teams. We've got a proven track record of installing, configuring, and managing VFC for a multitude of different telephony platforms as well in the financial sectors. As a service provider and software vendor, it came only naturally to us to take the next evolution step together with Verint and offer VFC as a fully managed software as a service package to our customers and technology partners. As I mentioned before, taking away that having to looking after servers and managing it yourself, you can just get it as a full service package from us. And you can also get, so if you would decide to go forward with a on-premise deployment, Luware can also help with that because we've got a strong team of very well-trained engineers on the Verint platform.
Great. Thanks,
right.
Alex.
Thank you.
I'm now going to hand back to Mike Smith. Mike, any questions come up?
Yes, thanks, Phil. So we've had a number of questions. Just a reminder, if you do have a question, just go to click on the Q&A button and you'll see the text input there to be able to ask a question. We have had a number, so thanks for that, Alex, Jerry, and Phil. I think the first question probably goes to Alex, but Jerry and Phil, feel free to chip in. It's really concerning what are the lessons learned so far. So obviously, Luware have had the platform for a while now. You've got a number of customers on the platform. Are there any lessons learned so far? And I guess connected to that, there was also a question around, is there any additional server infrastructure required? I assume that's the customer providing additional server infrastructure.
Sure. So yes, as you mentioned, we've got quite a couple of customers on our hosted platform so far. I think it's around 20, which have already started using our service environment. Obviously, there's a couple of lessons learned, right? So in starting out with a new solution and a hosted platform, you need to learn on basic like how do you integrate, what's the easiest way on integrating with the customers, and Luware has adopted and built out a system which is very easy to adopt there based on customer feedback. One thing we've also been very grateful for in that respect is that we've got a very close relationship with Verint, can feedback directly there when we see challenges on the front line. And obviously in the software as a service business, it's very essential that if you identify an issue, that it gets resolved quickly because it affects all the customers using that platform. In terms of additional server infrastructure, as you asked, there is no need for any server infrastructure within the customer environment if you choose the hosted solution. Basically, as simple as creating a bot connection and a compliance policy and assigning that to your users. All the rest is taken care of by our hosted environment.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. Thanks. So another question, probably aimed at Jerry. When will Teams IM capture be available? And when will it capture channel conversations?
Okay. So it's coming soon. There's two considerations. One is the chat API that we interact with on the Microsoft side. That's currently in public beta. It's not generally available. So the timelines we're looking at is probably at some point in October, and the capability that will be there for instant message chat capture is the ability to capture across the different ways that you can chat within Teams. So it has the parity with Skype and others where it's one-to-one and one-to-many. Teams introduces a concept of Teams channels, which are essentially persistent chat rooms. So we can capture from the channels as well. So and we can also capture all of the complexities of that. So the threads, I don't know, Mike, if you replied to a message I sent 6 months ago, and being able to capture the thread and what that reply is as well. So the complexities of channels and threadings and persistent chat, and also I see it in one of the later questions, all of the different attachment types that Teams IM introduces. So there's emojis, memes, GIFs, stickers, and emotions. We can capture all of them, and also the way that Teams works with interacts with Office 365. We can capture the instances of files that were shared. Some of that's dependent on how Office 365 is set up, but essentially when you send a message within Teams, it's often a link. It's not actually the message, so it's connecting to SharePoint and OneDrive in the background. But from a compliance point of view, we'll capture the instance of the file attachment that was sent as well. So we're essentially going to be able to capture everything, and that includes channels and the more modern attachments as part of Teams Instant Message.
Sounds great, Jerry. Sounds great. So moving on to the next question, which is really around how does licensing work? I think Alex kind of alluded to this in his response. So licensing for this particular service, works on a per user per month named user basis. whereby organizations can commit to a number of users over a number of years to obviously achieve a better price, and then they can flex above the commit line where they've got users not permanently using the system. So a commit line and a flex above that. Alex, would you add anything to that just for your service?
No, I think, yes, so our service obviously also aligns with the standard licensing there. So our service can be purchased on a per user per month model, as you alluded to. The only additional cost would be for storage. So if you choose to store within your own environment, then that's Azure storage or on-prem storage you would be using, that would be the additional cost. But other than that, it's all formed up into this simple per user per month price, which makes it very transparent as well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thanks. I mean, I think just generally speaking, we're pretty flexible around licensing. So best thing is to get in touch with ourselves and Luware, and we have various different models, and we nearly always have a solution in terms of licensing for our customers. Okay, next question is from Sean. How does your application deal with modern attachments? So this really relates to, as part of a chat discussion, if there's documents that are part of that, how does it deal with multiple versions of a document? That's quite a technical question, I guess. Jerry, I don't know if you have a view on that one, or whether we need to take that one offline.
No, yeah. So that's we capture the instance of the message that's being shared. So there's a second integration call. So the first one is to capture what's been sent, and the second integration call is to go and get the actual file instance at the time of it being sent. So we'll have the version of the document that's being discussed at the time. So we'll solve that use case, and that'll be part of the Teams release that'll be out in the Teams instant message release that'll be out in October. All of the voice and video and screen share is currently generally available. So yeah, we can deal with that behavior within Teams.
Okay, sounds good. All right, and next question from James. How do you deal with room-based team systems? So where it isn't always possible to identify all participants?
So we can really only capture what Teams is aware of. So there are some instances, as mentioned in the question, and others if there's counterparties or third parties that join that are guests, where we maybe don't have we'll get the metadata that Teams is aware of. So in a lot of those instances, you'll still have a guest view of the username that's joined, but maybe not as much of the additional data. So we basically get all of the information we can from the Teams platform in terms of the participants in a call, and that will vary depending on how Teams is set up with federation and some of the other functionality within Teams. But we get what we can from what the Teams platform is aware of.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Jerry. So the next question: how long does it typically take to deploy a new compliance recording system on Teams? I suppose, Alex, from your experience with your platform.
Sure. So if we talk about the hosted platform, then we had customers live within a matter of 3 days, for example. So if the requirements are clear and we've done a workshop with the customer, then we can bring customers live within a matter of days. It just depends, obviously, on the complexity of the requirements and the internal processes as well, which some customers have. But from our point of view, yes, usually live within the week.
Great. Yeah, certainly one of the benefits of having the multi-tenant hosted platform for sure. Okay, so next question is from Ben. If and I guess this relates to if a customer has they're an existing user of AWS, the AWS Cloud Platform, rather than Azure, can they get the benefits of the Verint solution installed on AWS today? I guess Jerry or Phil, if you want to chip in on that one.
Sure. So there are some things you need to consider. One of them is a dependency on the integration to Teams. So the answer is some of the infrastructure must be installed on Azure, and that's a dependency that's part of the Teams integration. So the recording bots, which is the service that interacts with Teams in our software that initiates the recording, that must be hosted on VMs within Azure. The rest of the infrastructure, so the recording servers, the media repositories, the archives, the compliance applications, they can be installed anywhere. So whether that's AWS or on-prem or some other cloud platform, they can be anywhere. So it would need to be a hybrid, is to try and answer your question more succinctly. The Azure, you must have the recording bot running on a VM in Azure, or else you won't get support from Microsoft, and in turn you won't have support from ourselves. So that's the one part of the infrastructure that must be in Azure. The rest of it can run on AWS.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Jerry. Thank you. And thanks to everyone online for submitting the questions. I think we got through most of them. If we've missed any, we'll certainly respond to any that we've missed, and also send round the responses to the questions that have been asked as part of the follow-up for this. So so it just remains to say thank you for attending today. I hope you found the session useful. If you need to reach out for more information, and there were a couple of questions saying, how do I get the recording for this, and can you do demonstrations? Absolutely, you'll get a recording link as part of the follow-up from this session, and absolutely we can do further in-depth, detailed demonstrations. Just reach out to your normal Verint contact or your Verint partner, and there's also a list of contacts in the bio section. So on the website, if you go into that, you'll see email addresses. There's also a general contact us email address if you can't find the right person. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us directly. So with that, thank you for your time. Thanks to Phil, Jerry, and Alex for delivering the presentation, and have a great day.